Every breath you take is proof. Proof that you've been carried through every single thing you thought would break you. Every sunrise you've seen is evidence that something greater than your worry has been orchestrating your life. Yet here you are, still clutching fear like it's the only thing keeping you safe. What if I told you that your worry is the very thing blocking your miracles? Listen to me carefully. This isn't about positive thinking. This isn't about pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is about recognizing a fundamental truth that your worry has been hiding from you. You have survived 100% of your worst days, every single one. The thing you feared last year that consumed your sleep and stole your peace, you're still here, breathing, living, moving forward. But worry has convinced you otherwise. It's whispered to you that without constant vigilance, without endless planning, without perpetual anxiety, everything will fall apart. It's made you believe that your worry is somehow productive, that it's protecting you, that it's keeping disaster at bay. Let me ask you something. Has your worry ever once changed an outcome? Has it ever solved a problem? Has it ever brought you closer to the life you're meant to live? Or has it simply robbed you of the present moment while you obsessed over a future that exists only in your imagination? You see, worry is a prayer for what you don't want. Every time you rehearse disaster in your mind, you're actually moving energy toward that very thing. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because where your attention goes, your energy flows. When you spend hours imagining worst-case scenarios, you're literally training your nervous system to expect catastrophe. You're conditioning yourself to live in a state of perpetual emergency. And your body knows. Your body is paying the price for every worry you carry. The tension in your shoulders, the knot in your stomach, the tightness in your chest. These aren't random physical sensations. They're messages. Your body is trying to tell you that you're living in opposition to the natural flow of life. Your body doesn't lie to you. When you're in a state of worry, your body enters survival mode. Your nervous system can't tell the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. So when you spend hours worrying about something that might happen next week, your body responds as if it's happening right now. Your heart races, your breathing becomes shallow. Stress hormones flood your system, and you do this to yourself. Day after day, you trigger your own stress response with thoughts that exist only in your mind, with scenarios that haven't happened, with fears that may never materialize. But your body knows the way back to peace. Every deep breath you take is a message to your body. It's telling your nervous system, we're safe. Every moment you spend in the present is a signal. There's no emergency here. Every time you choose trust over worry, you're recalibrating your entire system back to its natural state of peace. Think about a tree for a moment. Does it worry about whether spring will come? Does it anxiety spiral about whether the rain will fall? Does it lose sleep over whether its leaves will grow? No. It trusts. It trusts the intelligence that created it. It trusts the process. It trusts the seasons. And because of that trust, it flourishes exactly as it was designed to. But you've been taught to trust your worry more than you trust the force that's been keeping your heart beating without your permission. You've been conditioned to believe that you're in control. That if you just think hard enough, plan meticulously enough, worry thoroughly enough, you can prevent pain, you can avoid loss. You can control outcomes. This is the great illusion that's destroying your peace. Control is an illusion. It always has been. The only thing you truly control is where you place your focus, where you direct your energy, how you respond to what life presents. Everything else is in hands far more capable than yours, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that this sounds irresponsible, that letting go of worry means being reckless, that trust means passivity. But that's not what I'm saying at all. There's a profound difference between worry and preparation. There's a vast gap between anxiety and wisdom. There's a distinction between fear and intuition. Preparation comes from a place of clarity. Worry comes from a place of chaos. Preparation takes action. Worry spins in circles. Preparation deals with what is. Worry obsesses over what might be. You can prepare for tomorrow without sacrificing your peace today. You can make plans without making yourself sick. You can be responsible without being consumed. But here's what you must understand. The voice of worry and the voice of divine guidance sound completely different. Worry is loud. It's frantic. It's repetitive. It loops the same thoughts over and over until you're exhausted. Divine guidance is quiet. It's calm. It's clear. It comes once and then waits patiently for you to listen. Learn to distinguish between these two voices. This is one of the most important skills you'll ever develop. Worry speaks in absolutes. It says always and never and what if. It catastrophizes. It dramatizes. It takes one possibility and turns it into inevitable disaster. Divine guidance speaks in gentle suggestions. It offers direction without force. It shows you the next step without demanding you see the entire path. Worry feels heavy. It feels like pressure. It feels like you're being crushed under the weight of everything you need to figure out. Divine guidance feels light. It feels like relief. It feels like a door opening where you thought there were only walls. Even when the guidance asks you to do something difficult, there's a sense of rightness to it, a sense of alignment, a sense of peace underneath the challenge. Worry makes you feel small. It makes you feel incapable. It makes you feel like you're not enough to handle what's coming. Divine guidance makes you feel expanded. It reminds you of your strength. It shows you resources you didn't know you had. It connects you to a power far greater than your individual self. And here's the crucial part. Worry wants you to figure everything out before you take action. It wants guarantees. It wants certainty. It wants to see the end before it begins. Divine guidance asks you to take the first step before you can see the second. It asks you to move forward even when you can't see where you're going. It asks you to trust the process even when the process doesn't make logical sense. This is where most people get stuck. They're waiting for clarity before they trust. They're waiting for proof before they surrender. They're waiting for certainty before they let go of worry. But it doesn't work that way. You trust first, then clarity comes. You surrender first, then proof appears. You let go of worry first. Then you see what was always there waiting for you. When you're in a state of worry, you cannot hear guidance. You cannot receive wisdom. You cannot see the solutions that are right in front of you. Worry creates static. It clouds your perception. It blocks your intuition. And then you wonder why you feel so lost, why you feel so alone, why you can't find your way forward. You're not lost. You're just listening to the wrong voice. The voice that tells you you're not enough. The voice that says the universe is hostile. The voice that insists you must figure everything out on your own. That voice is a liar. It's been lying to you your entire life. And every moment you spend believing it is a moment you spend disconnected from the truth of who you really are. You are not separate from the intelligence that orchestrates everything. You are part of it. The same force that grows flowers from seeds and turns acorns into oak trees lives within you. The same intelligence that regulates the planets and creates galaxies is flowing through your veins right now. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You are not alone in this universe trying to survive by sheer willpower. But your worry tells you otherwise. It tells you that you're on your own, that it's all up to you, that if you don't worry, who will? And that's when you need to stop and ask yourself a question that will change everything. Who was taking care of you before you learned to worry? Think about it. When you were a child, before the world taught you fear, who kept your heart beating? Who made sure you breathed in your sleep? Who grew your bones and healed your cuts and regulated a billion processes in your body without you thinking about it once? That intelligence didn't suddenly abandon you when you got older. It's still there, still working, still guiding, still supporting. You just stopped trusting it. And I'm not talking about blind faith. I'm not talking about sticking your head in the sand and pretending challenges don't exist. I'm talking about a deep, abiding trust that's based on evidence. The evidence of your own life. The evidence that you have been carried. That you have been protected. That you have been guided even when you couldn't see it. Especially when you couldn't see it. Look back at your life for a moment. Really look. How many times did things work out differently than you planned? How many times did a door close that you thought you needed, only to find a better door opening? How many times did you not get what you wanted and later realized you got exactly what you needed? How many times did you worry yourself sick over something that either never happened or turned out to be a blessing in disguise? This is the evidence I'm talking about. This is the proof that something is taking care of you. Not in the way you demand, not according to your timeline, not following your blueprint, but in a way that's more intelligent, more compassionate, more perfect than anything your worried mind could ever conceive. Yet you keep trying to control it. You keep trying to force it. You keep trying to worry it into submission. And all that does is create resistance. All that does is block the natural flow. All that does is make you exhausted, depleted, and convinced that life is harder than it needs to be. Life isn't hard because the universe is against you. Life is hard because you're working against the universe. You're swimming upstream. You're pushing against the current. You're fighting against the very force that's trying to carry you. And then you wonder why you're so tired, why nothing feels easy, why everything feels like a struggle. It doesn't have to be this way. There's another way to live. A way that doesn't require you to control everything. A way that doesn't demand you figure everything out. A way that allows you to move through life with grace instead of grinding through it with anxiety. This way requires one thing from you: trust. Not trust that everything will go the way you want, but trust that everything will go the way it needs to. Trust that you're being guided. Trust that you're being supported. Trust that even in the darkest moments, there's a light you cannot yet see. And I know this is difficult. I know your mind wants proof before it trusts. I know you want guarantees. I know you want to see the entire staircase before you take the first step. But that's not how trust works. That's not how faith operates. You take the step. Then the next step appears. You release the worry. Then the guidance comes. You let go of control. Then you discover what's been trying to reach you all along. This is terrifying for your ego. Your ego wants you to believe that you're the author of your life, that you're the one in charge, that your worth is measured by how much you accomplish and how well you control outcomes. But your ego is not your friend. Your ego is the source of your suffering. It's the voice that tells you you're not doing enough, not achieving enough, not controlling enough. And it uses worry as its primary weapon. Your ego believes that if you stop worrying, everything will fall apart. It's convinced that your worry is what's holding your life together. It's terrified of surrender because surrender feels like death to the ego. And in a way it is. When you surrender, when you truly trust, the false self that you've been building begins to crumble. The identity you've constructed around being the one who has it all figured out starts to dissolve. And that dissolution feels uncomfortable. It feels dangerous. It feels like you're losing yourself. But you're not losing yourself. You're losing the version of yourself that was never real to begin with. You're losing the mask, the armor, the false identity that's been exhausting you for years. The ego thrives on separation. It needs you to believe you're alone. It needs you to believe you're separate from everyone and everything. It needs you to believe that you must protect yourself because no one else will. And worry is how it maintains that separation. Worry keeps you isolated. It keeps you in your head. It keeps you disconnected from the flow of life and from the source of all creation. But your true self knows differently. Your true self knows that you're not separate. You're not alone. You're not the small, isolated, vulnerable being that your ego wants you to believe you are. Your true self knows that you're connected to everything, that you're part of an infinite intelligence, that you're a unique expression of the same force that creates worlds and spins galaxies. When you choose trust over worry, you're not just changing a thought pattern, you're shifting your identity. You're moving from ego consciousness to spiritual consciousness. You're transitioning from the false self to the true self. And your ego will fight this with everything it has. It will use every tool in its arsenal to keep you worried, anxious, and convinced that you need to control everything. This is why the shift from worry to trust requires such courage. It's not just about feeling better. It's about dying to who you thought you were and being reborn into who you actually are. It's about releasing the identity that's been suffocating you and embracing the truth of your being. And that's not easy. That takes tremendous bravery. That requires you to face the deepest fear the ego has, that it's not real, that it's not necessary, that you can live without it. Every time you worry, you're feeding your ego. You're strengthening the false belief that you're separate, alone, and responsible for making everything happen. Every time you trust, you're weakening your ego. You're remembering that you're connected, supported, and part of something infinitely larger than yourself. This shift from worry to trust is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. It's a moment-by-moment choice. Because worry is a habit. It's a pattern you've been running for years, maybe decades. And like any habit, it requires conscious effort to change. It requires awareness. It requires commitment. It requires compassion for yourself when you slip back into old patterns. Because you will slip back. You will have days when worry feels overwhelming, when trust feels impossible, when the old patterns come rushing back with a vengeance. And that's okay. That's not failure. That's the process. The question is not whether you'll worry. The question is how quickly you'll recognize it and choose differently. When you notice worry creeping in, pause. Just pause. Don't judge it. Don't fight it. Don't make it mean something about you. Just notice it. Acknowledge it. And then ask yourself, is this worry serving me? Is it solving anything? Is it bringing me peace? And if the answer is no, which it always will be, you have a choice. You can continue feeding it, or you can choose trust. Trust looks like this. It looks like taking the action you can take and releasing attachment to the outcome. It looks like doing your best and knowing that's enough. It looks like preparing without catastrophizing. It looks like planning without demanding that life follow your plan. It looks like surrendering control while maintaining responsibility. Let me be specific. Trust looks like sending that email and releasing your need for an immediate response. It looks like having that difficult conversation and surrendering your attachment to how the other person reacts. It looks like applying for that opportunity and knowing that if it's meant for you, no one can take it away, and if it's not, something better is coming. Trust looks like going to bed at night without replaying every conversation from the day, analyzing what you should have said differently. It looks like waking up in the morning without immediately reaching for your phone to check if disaster struck while you were sleeping. It looks like moving through your day without constantly scanning the horizon for threats. Trust looks like being present with your children instead of worrying about whether you're parenting them correctly. It looks like enjoying your relationship instead of constantly monitoring it for signs of potential failure. It looks like doing your work without obsessing over whether it's good enough, whether people will like it, whether it will lead to the outcome you desire. Trust looks like making decisions from a place of inner knowing rather than from fear of what might happen if you choose wrong. It looks like listening to that quiet voice inside that says, this is the way, even when the louder voice of logic is screaming, but what about all the risks? And here's what trust doesn't look like. It doesn't look like recklessness. It doesn't look like ignoring red flags or bypassing common sense. It doesn't look like spiritual bypassing where you pretend everything is fine when it's not. Trust is not passivity. Trust is not denial. Trust is not avoiding responsibility. Trust is active. It's engaged. It's present. But it's coming from a completely different place than worry. Worry comes from fear. Trust comes from love. Worry comes from scarcity. Trust comes from abundance. Worry comes from separation. Trust comes from connection. The actions might look similar from the outside, but the internal experience is completely different. And surrender is not giving up. Surrender is not passivity. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender is the most powerful thing you can do. Because when you surrender, you stop resisting. When you stop resisting, you stop suffering. When you stop suffering, you create space. And in that space, miracles happen. Solutions appear. Guidance comes. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. But you can't access any of that while you're in a state of worry. Worry closes doors. Trust opens them. Worry creates contraction. Trust creates expansion. Worry attracts more problems to worry about. Trust attracts solutions you couldn't have imagined. This is not wishful thinking. This is not magical thinking. This is understanding how energy works. This is understanding that you are a vibrational being in a vibrational universe. And the vibration you emit through worry is completely different from the vibration you emit through trust. Worry vibrates at the frequency of fear. Trust vibrates at the frequency of love. And the universe always responds to the frequency you're broadcasting. When you broadcast fear through worry, you attract experiences that match that frequency. Not because you're being punished, but because like attracts like. When you broadcast love through trust, you attract experiences that match that frequency. Not because you're special, but because that's how this works. That's how it's always worked. You just forgot. You forgot that you're not here to control everything. You're here to experience, to grow, to learn, to love, to become more of who you really are. And none of that happens in a state of worry. It all happens in a state of trust. Trust in the process. Trust in the timing. Trust in the intelligence that's been running your life since before you took your first breath. Think about the things you've worried about in your life. The relationships you thought you couldn't live without. The jobs you thought defined you. The dreams you thought had to happen exactly as you envisioned, or your life would be ruined. Where are those worries now? How many of them came true? How many of them mattered in the long run? How many of them were actually blessings in disguise? This perspective shift is crucial. Because when you look back, you can see clearly what you couldn't see in the moment. You can see that you were always being taken care of. Even when it didn't feel like it. Even when you were convinced you were falling apart. Even when you couldn't see any way forward. You were being guided. You were being supported. You were being loved by a force that never left you, even when you left yourself. And that's what worry really is. Leaving yourself. Abandoning the present moment to live in a future that doesn't exist. Betraying your own peace to serve the illusion of control. Disconnecting from your source to try to manage everything from your limited human perspective. But here's the truth that will set you free. You are not meant to manage everything from your limited human perspective. You're meant to collaborate with something greater. You're meant to do your part and trust that the universe will do its part. You're meant to show up, take action, and then release. You're meant to give your best and know that's enough. This doesn't mean you don't care. This doesn't mean you don't try. This doesn't mean you become apathetic or disconnected. It means you care without carrying. You try without forcing. You engage without controlling. You participate fully in life while simultaneously trusting the process completely. This is the dance. The sacred dance between human effort and divine grace. Between doing and being. Between action and surrender. And worry is what happens when you try to do all the dancing by yourself. When you try to control both your part and the universe's part. When you try to be both the dancer and the choreographer and the music all at once. You can't do that. You were never meant to do that. And the exhaustion you feel is your soul's way of telling you to stop trying, to stop striving, to stop forcing, to stop worrying yourself into the ground, trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place. What if you just stopped? What if for just one day, 1 hour, 1 moment, you chose trust over worry? What if you decided to believe that you're being guided even when you can't see where you're going? What if you trusted that everything is unfolding exactly as it needs to, even when it doesn't look like what you expected? What if you surrendered the burden you've been carrying? The burden of trying to figure everything out. The burden of trying to prevent every possible negative outcome. The burden of trying to be enough, do enough, control enough to keep disaster at bay. What if you just put it down? Not because you're giving up, but because you're waking up. Waking up to the truth that you've never been alone in this. That you've always been supported. That there's an intelligence far greater than your worrying mind that's been orchestrating everything since the beginning. And that intelligence has never made a mistake with you. Every experience you've had, every challenge you faced, every loss you've endured, every moment you thought would destroy you, all of it was purposeful. All of it was teaching you. All of it was preparing you for exactly where you are right now. And where you are right now is exactly where you need to be. But you can't see that through the lens of worry. Through the lens of worry, everything looks wrong. Everyone is a threat. Every challenge is proof that life is against you. Through the lens of trust, everything looks different. Every experience is an opportunity. Every challenge is an invitation to grow. Every moment is a chance to remember who you really are. And who you really are is not a worrier. That's not your true nature. That's just a pattern you learned, a coping mechanism you developed, a false sense of security you created. Your true nature is peace. Your true nature is trust. Your true nature is love. And every moment you spend in worry is a moment you spend disconnected from your truth. The invitation is to come home, to come back to yourself, to remember what you knew before the world taught you to fear, to reconnect with the source of all creation that lives within you, to trust the process that's been unfolding since before time began. This isn't about religion. This isn't about doctrine. This isn't about believing anything specific. This is about recognizing what's true. And what's true is that you are held, you are guided, you are loved, not by some distant deity judging your every move, but by the very fabric of existence itself, by the intelligence that breathes through all of life, by the force that never stops working on your behalf even when you've stopped trusting it. Your worry is not protecting you, it's imprisoning you. It's keeping you small. It's blocking your blessings. It's preventing you from experiencing the fullness of life that's available to you right now. And the key to your prison is trust. Trust is what unlocks the door. Trust is what sets you free. Trust is what allows you to live as you were meant to live, not in constant fear of what might happen, but in constant awareness of what is happening, not in perpetual anxiety about tomorrow, but in deep presence with today, not in endless worry about outcomes, but in peaceful surrender to the process. This is freedom. This is peace. This is what your soul has been longing for all along, and it's available to you right now. Not when you figure everything out, not when you solve all your problems, not when you finally get your life under control. Right now, in this moment. You can choose trust over worry. You can choose peace over anxiety. You can choose surrender over control. It won't be easy. Your mind will fight it. Your ego will resist it. Your old patterns will try to pull you back. But every time you choose trust over worry, you strengthen that neural pathway. Every time you surrender control, you weaken the grip of fear. Every time you breathe into the present moment instead of spiraling into the future, you reclaim a piece of your peace. And slowly, gradually, consistently, your life transforms. Not because everything suddenly goes your way, but because you stop needing everything to go your way. Not because challenges disappear, but because you stop seeing them as evidence that you're not being taken care of. Not because you gain control, but because you release the need for it. This is the shift that changes everything, from worry to trust, from fear to faith, from resistance to surrender. This is what you've been searching for. This is what will finally bring you peace. Not out there, not in the future, not when circumstances change, right here, right now, in this moment. The message has always been the same. Stop worrying, start trusting. Let go, surrender, breathe. Know that you are guided. Know that you are loved. Know that you are exactly where you need to be. Every worry you've ever carried was preparation for this moment. The moment you finally understand that the weight was never yours to bear, that the control was never yours to have, that the peace was always yours to claim. The universe has been whispering to you all along. Through every closed door, through every unanswered prayer, through every moment you thought you were falling apart. It's been saying the same thing. Let me carry this, let me guide you, let me show you what's possible when you stop fighting and start flowing. And now you know, now you see. The worry was never protecting you. It was only blocking the very thing you were seeking. Your freedom was always one choice away, one breath away, one moment of surrender away. This is that moment.